Open fire. Now that I have your attention.
Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast. This is Josiah, and we got kind of a fun random extra episode coming in tonight. This is my buddy. If you're watching via YouTube, if you're listening, obviously you'll hear him in a second, but if you're watching via YouTube, we have my buddy Ricardo Martinez on today, and we met actually because of Star Wars Instagram, of all things. So toy photography, once again, is the bridge to so many cool relationships in my life. And so he's a friend, and actually reaching back into the past, which is crazy. This is like 6 years ago now. We were planning on starting a Star Wars podcast all these years ago, like right at the launch of The Force Awakens. You remember that?
SWAmigos, dude.
Yeah.
SWAmigos unite. No,
So dude, I have a hat somewhere that I got made. I should have dug through and try to find it.
Oh dude, I would love a hat. Like we used to do so for the people that like, obviously don't know the in joke, like it was SWamigos, and it was like, so SWAmigos,
Right.
like
It was, so yeah, so Star Wars Amigos, and we just went with SWAmigos, and it ended up, that's all we used to like spell the whole thing out, but then by the time it was all said and done, we just went with SWAmigos. But right as we were trying to get everything rolling, I took on a new job, and then you had some stuff come up, and so I think we both just got so busy.
Yeah, dude, I'm perpetually like kicking myself for not jumping on the podcast with you, dude. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
We always have a great conversation, and I think like both of us were kind of just like, yo, like let's like people, like we used to call each other. I remember we used to call each other up and be like, dude, so I got this figure on this night of like the Rogue One toy fair. Like, did you get anything at Toys R Us? Yeah, I think, and we would like call each other. And yeah, I mean, you've always been like the nicest dude I've met online. At that time I was like, man, we should just record it, because there's so many, we had so many good conversations. So I just was like, yeah. And I think you were thinking too, you maybe it was your idea. Actually, it might've been.
I don't remember. I think one of the reasons that, I guess one of the reasons, it was kind of from both of us, but it was cool because one of the reasons we were so interested is because you and your wife had come across and were big fans of Blastpoints podcast. And
oh man, Jason.
Yeah, they're the best. And you kept telling me, hey, you got to listen to these guys. You got to listen to these guys. And I just remember being like, okay, cool. And so at my old job, I used to have to drive downtown like 3 or 4 times a week, which is about a 30-40 minute drive. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll check it out. And it's one of those things that like a lot of the stuff, I mean, pretty much anything that Jason and Gabe put out is great. But then they also have like some of these peak episodes that like you'll go back and re-listen to, And so the first episode I actually ever listened to was Fun in the Twin Suns, which was them talking about the Twin Suns episode of Rebels, where you see Kenobi and Maul facing off for the last time. And so that was that's such a great episode. Like even in the grand scheme of the 300 episodes that they've done, that was one of my favorites.
That's probably one of the best, like, it's hard to say that there's like a best Star Wars Rebels episode, but that one is pretty epic, man. I mean, and it's so crazy because if you watch that episode like by itself, it's almost like I know a lot of people who haven't like who've watched that and haven't like followed the storyline up until that moment. They're like, oh, it's pretty cool. And like I try to explain to people, like, if you like, it's really Filoni like building to that episode over like almost 3 seasons.
Yeah, totally.
That one episode, like if you take it out of context of all the rest of the seasons, it's like okay or good episode. But when you see it with all the built-in, like all the different story elements kind of finally building that, it's just like it's devastatingly good, like it's totally like, but it's also like that fight scene is so amazing and iconic and like dead on the spot samurai that like it's like like when he gets in the stance, I just get chills, man. Like it's so
good. It's so good because it's like obviously nobody that is currently working with Lucasfilm probably has, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy and George are obviously super close, but like the person who probably captures how George feels Star Wars is Dave Filoni. Like that's just, he's almost like the son that was handed off the empire, you know what I mean? Like and so how he looks at like westerns and samurai and storytelling and
Yeah.
all of that is so, it's so George that I remember watching the episode and being like, this is going to be a crazy knockdown drag out fight. And it was so quick. And in the moment I was thinking, what the heck was that? But it's crazy because it's actually one of those scenes that you go back and the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, the more you think about where Kenobi is and where Maul is and like where they are with the relationship to the Force and the universe and all these other things. It could not be played out more perfectly. And so it was really cool. So long story short, you guys put me onto Blastpoints. We would always like trading figures back and forth. And I still remember whenever there was a comic shop, like not even close to you, but like semi close, that was going out of business. So it was like some of these things that were expensive, they were just selling for store price.
Oh my
And
God.
I was like, dude,
Yeah, when I
anytime,
got like, I think I got like, yeah. So my Instagram is a galaxy nearby. And you know, we used to really be into toy photography. And you know, I still kind of dabble in toy photography. I've just gotten like busy with my regular job. But like at the time, I used to pull these like I was like, you know, when I do something, when I get into like a hobby, I go like kind of crazy on it, and I and I kind of put my all. And at that time, I was into like really finding collecting Star Wars figures and collectibles that were like really important and hard to find. And yeah, there was this Clone Wars sale at Fat Collectibles. And I remember I got like, I must have got like all of their, oh my God, the purple, the Mace Windu battalion. What is it? It's not the
is
five.
it the,
It's like
the 187th, I want to say?
the 187th. That's right. The 187th. And I got like so many stacks and stacks of those. I got them loose and I got the 501st. I got like, I mean, it was just like, I think I built out part of my army. I didn't get this Clone Wars tank there, but I got, I mean, you know, so many parts of my army. And I remember they like, that was just part of it. Like I'd go on like Facebook and yeah. And I remember, I think I told you this once too. I ended up meeting some lady that was selling off her like ex-husband, or I forget exactly the whole story, but she was just basically selling off this collection. Daughter, and she like it was like totally a thing where I was like buying something off of off of Facebook Marketplace, and it was just like piles of Clone Wars figures, and it was like the Shadow Troopers. I remember I had nothing but Shadow Troopers and nothing but like, you know, like it was a great era. But yeah, I used to call you with like, oh dude, I'm getting, you know, this entire collection right now that I just randomly found, and you know, what do you think about this, you know, Shadow Squadron V-Wing or something? And
yeah,
you know, like
I remember it used to be like there, you would be so excited whenever the Galaxy Nearby mail calls were coming in, because you would find stuff on these great deals. And then because we were friends, it was like, hey, cover the shipping and just the cost, just reimburse me for what I spent. Like you're not trying to even make a buck on it. And so we would take the packages, like when we would send stuff back and forth, we would take the packages and like, let's say a legacy collection that has like a little bit of a bubble, more space than what we have in figures now. And we would just take the plastic filler out and just shove like 7 figures in that bubble and be like, this fits. Because everything was loose. Like who cared about a carded figure? And now like, now I care more. Like, even if I'm going to open it, I like to just keep the card because I like having the artwork, you know what I mean? But at the time it was like, we're going to throw away the package anyway. So we were just cramming like 10 figures into one bubble and just sending it in the mail in a bubble mailer. And dude, good times. But so that was where we birthed the podcast idea. Was Blastpoints does it. We're having these organic conversations. We're having these thoughts of like, what's next, predicting what's next, what would be the best figure that you could make from this show, or things like that.
Yeah, like what were the new figures that were going to come out? I remember we were like really thinking about that. That was a great, you know, because like Hasbro had like different, you know, lines that they were going to release, and I you know, I have an incredible knowledge now of Star Wars collectibles and you know, like vintage collectibles as well. And it was just like, yeah, like this stuff. I remember I mean, the sculpture, I mean, I'm getting all those feels back from the toy days. And you know, the thing that I like loved about the toy photography, honestly, was that I felt like I got like a huge, like I'm a film school nerd, like, you know, at heart. Like I still, you know, I went to film school and all that stuff. And I was working in TV, but I wanted to like, you know, do something like creatively. Like and I loved Star Wars, and I wanted to take pictures. Like I wanted to make something, you know, and
Right.
that brought me back to my photography skills. Is what I'm trying to say is that Instagram account really helped me like focus on like photography skills, lighting, and also miniature work. Like it's so crazy because toy photography basically is like teaching you how to shoot miniatures because they're so tiny. And all that stuff, I'm like super. It's like super useful now. Like, you know, just thinking about scale and how to photograph something that so it doesn't look tiny, so it's in focus. You know, like all of these things are super like useful as a filmmaker or artist, photographer. Like it was cool, you know, like it was fun. Like
And it was really cool too, because I think that you were one of the guys that was helping me learn like for instance, hey, a picture of a new figure you got just up against a white background is cool, but what if you have this guy in focus and then just grab a random figure, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it, like, obviously if you're on, you know, whatever planet, try to have it fit whatever, but have something going in the background that gives it that depth of field. That's what makes it a story. It's not just a picture. Now there's something, well, what's happening over here that's blurry? You know what I mean? Maybe the character you actually want to focus on is the bounty hunter who's blurry behind the character who's in your focus, you know? And so I thought that was really cool. And it turns out, like, I was talking to my buddy, I just as of, it's Friday night late, as of earlier Friday, I put out our finale review for the Book of Boba Fett. And but going back to episodes 5 and 6 of Book of Boba, where the Mandalorian kind of took over, I think some of obviously the Mandalorian is all of the silent killer character that Boba Fett was meant to be before they knew they were bringing back Boba for live action. So that's why he gets some of that cool, like, John Wayne feel to him. But one of the reasons that those Mandalorian episodes stood out, I think, is because of the places that they were taking the Mandalorian. You could have more of a depth of field that made it feel more like a real experience versus there's only so much you can do on a Mos Espa street where everything's the same color and you can't really tell how big the street is. So like the meat market and like even a hangar on Tatooine, but it's a different feel, gives it that depth. And you know, you're one of those guys that helped me gain that, tell a story with the picture, not just, you know, if you want to just show something you got, that's cool. But if it's like, if you want to tell a story with a picture, ask yourself what would be natural for this environment. Don't put everything so close together. It's okay to clear out the kitchen table and have a figure 4 feet away, you know, if that helps you tell the story of the picture. So that was really cool.
Man, what's the word? I'm bad at taking compliments. So, but I appreciate, like, man, I feel like, you know, I learned from you too. And you know, like, I'm glad I didn't know I taught you anything, you know, besides like, you know, bad jokes and things like that. But I'm glad that, like, easy there, easy. No, but like, you know, in general, like, yeah, man, I learned a lot at that time. I'm glad that we had all the relationships. I know, like, you know, we met so many different people. And one of the things, I was gonna say, because you brought up Mandalorian, was like, you know, the whole idea of putting an LED wall or a screen behind you is directly from toy photography for me.
Right.
Before Mandalorian was even like there was you know, Work More Less, the nicest guy, you know.
Yeah,
ever.
like,
And,
look, literally on my little podcast station that I built at the house, I got a pin. It's kind of hard to put into focus, but yeah, I actually got to meet
the digi backdrop, right?
Yeah, he was the one that was doing
I mean,
he kind of coined the term the Digirama, where you have, like, you build cardboard or whatever. He was doing it with a TV or with an iPad or whatever, you know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm like. I'm partially like curious, like, you know, did Jon Favreau? I mean, it's not Jon Favreau. I mean, it's actually an ancient, not ancient. It's a super old film technique to put like rear projection, basically. But like, but yeah, man. I mean, the Work More or Less's work is basically like, you know, a still version of virtual production, and you know, like which they end up using on Mandalorian and
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, if it wasn't for doing that toy photography stuff and like being involved in that culture and like doing all this stuff, I would have not used it myself or learned about it or or thought of it as a technique when I made my short. And so that's we're all talking about this toy photography thing for a while. Sorry if this is boring.
No,
but
no, all good, all good.
This was foundational for me, like as a filmmaker, and as a creative dude. Like it's so weird to like essentially like I loved taking photography for the Instagram, and my wife actually took a lot of the good pictures. It's funny to I'm taking credit for some of this stuff, but I mean I bet like the photos that have like the 1,000 likes and what have you, a lot of them are the ones that my wife took. Because I learned from her also like how Instagram works. But I think that all this stuff was foundation for being creative. It's funny how my journey kind of got me to realizing that I wanted to make more films. That's what I'm trying to get to, is that like me taking photos and toys and really just appreciating design, because I didn't just do Star Wars,
Right.
Appreciating design. And after like a year or two of doing the Instagram toy account, like I realized like, man, I just want to make like short films again. Like I want to direct and draw and do all these things. And so that's what's taken me out of that world a little bit, but hopefully, I'm back there as much as I can. I definitely still follow those accounts. And Skeleton Astronaut, for instance, is another toy account that I met, and he's your friend too, Brandon Ackery.
Yeah.
Is a super talented graphic designer, and he's actually did my cover. Like I'm super like I still talk to him a lot too. And there's a lot of artists that are, in there that are on Instagram taking photos of toys, or now it's,
right.
Not just that, it's, TikTok videos too. So anyway, but that's kind of like where.
Yeah. So that's kind of like our background. So it's kind of cool. It's almost like a SWAmigos takeover for the Chiss Ascendancy tonight. So it's kind of fun to go back and like reminisce and see, like, obviously the creativity is still there, so it was cool. Yeah. But it was interesting because it's funny that whenever I saw the Kenobi trailer, some of my first thoughts were like, and I made a joke about this when I did the recap for the trailer. I paused it right at the first like 3 seconds, and I was like, all right, folks, if you don't have a 3 3/4 inch EOP, now is the time before eBay skyrockets up. And it's funny because it happened, like they were selling for $20 or whatever. And then I just went and followed, like I have one, so I didn't want to buy another one, but I went and followed just to see where the prices were going. And it's like $60 for a plastic EOP that Obi-Wan can ride. Or like Lego Inquisitors from the Rebels line, when nobody liked Rebels, quote unquote. And now that's like some of the fan favorite content. The Inquisitor Lego minifigures, sadly, I don't have any of those, but they were like $20 the day before on Bricklink or whatever. You could get, so for $40 plus shipping, you could have both of those, which are cool, very different looking characters, and then now it's like $150 minimum per minifigure for those characters. Because of the power of exposure for your account via toy photography. Like there are people out there who are spending that coin to just own it, but a lot of people are doing that because that helps them build their platform. So it's crazy how like toy photography and all that, like TikToks and stuff like that, like you're talking about, has really grown. Like when we first started doing stuff like that back in like 2015, it wasn't big like it is now.
That's totally true. Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think about, dude, when we started, Instagram, there wasn't like a booth for what was toy photography? I mean, it's like what, there was no,
it felt like a niche.
It is a niche, but it's also like there was no acknowledgement of the niche. It was like it's like a niche within the niche, and yeah, I mean, like it was really rad though. And then Hasbro, I remember at San Diego Comic-Con, the Hasbro booth had like these toy photography exhibits, and it was like the first acknowledgement of this as like an art form. And I mean, it's miniatures. It's like photographing miniatures. Yeah. I would hire, actually the stop motion people. I was in a stop motion group, and I was in a virtual production group on Facebook, and I showed them some like virtual like digi backdrops that we did in toy design. Like I showed them toy photos, and I was like, yeah, like you don't need to build like a grass valley behind something that's this big, like right. Or you could just put a computer screen behind it, and boom, there you go, and that it gives you light. It does the same thing that they're doing on The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah,
it's like for toy photography, it's like, okay, I don't have the budget to be on like a 75-day cruise to all these locations to get these pictures of these toys. How do I recreate that with practical effects from like a Hobby Lobby? And if I don't have the time during the week to do that, how do I, what do I do? So you're figuring out like you go get a 6x6 faux grass at Hobby Lobby, and when the focus
you get a
is on
dishwasher tray. You get a dishwasher tray. You turn it
exactly.
upside down. It looks like Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Like
weird.
you go get a clear, like foot by foot, and then you go get electrical tape and you tape lines on it. Then you put a baker sheet over that, and you're walking in a Star Destroyer hallway. Like,
dude, well, that's also when you realize that like half the stuff in Star Wars is basically the dishwasher trays anyway. Like you're
exactly.
you're like, oh my god, like when you see, oh man, I was trying to think the other day, but like half the stuff in Star Wars anyway is from is from like the 99-cent store, and then they just painted it upside down, and
and that's the genius of Ben Burt too, because he was like, okay, I need a crazy sound. What if I put my electric shaver in a salad bowl? And it's like, those are the things nobody else is thinking of, but that's what makes it so iconic.
Well, was it Roger Christian? There was the art director that basically like, he makes the reason why the lightsaber is the reason why a lightsaber is a flash from a camera, like the Luke Skywalker lightsaber is literally, I'm sure all you guys know, is the Graflex. It's an old camera flash that he just, and the reason why those lightsaber is that, and all he did is put a few T strips, but it's literally the same thing. You take up one thing off and it's there. But it's because they didn't have money, they have budget. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna go make a thing. I'm gonna go to the trash. I'm gonna go to a camera parts store and get the trash. So it's all found objects repurposing, and that's like, yeah, I loved all that stuff, learning about it. I loved, and Instagram totally got me there. I already was a junkie from the 80s, but like, Star Wars ILM junkie of like following practical effects, but then this just like rekindled everything for me, and I'm really thankful that like I met guys like you, and that I had that journey through through that world, because it's like, man, and I mean, artists, there's like like Daz Tibbles, there's like animators, all these people within the Star Wars community that I've like been so lucky. And as for toys, like back to the Jedi and stuff, I didn't learn anything. I didn't know anything about the expanded universe until I started collecting the toys.
Right.
And then I realized like, there's just something amazing. It's not in a lot of, maybe not right now, a lot of TV shows or movies, Star Wars, but like the Ghost Vader, like this idea of like Vader coming back as a ghost and trying to do something good and helping Leia. I mean, all that stuff is like, wow, but it was only in a toy. I saw it as a toy in toy photography. So I'm like, why isn't this a story? That was the other thing about the toy photography, is that me and you were trying to create stories, like what if, what if the bounty hunter was related to, oh my God, what's the two lizards? There's the Bosk is related to
Bosk and Herchik Kalfas.
Herchik Kalfas. What if they were friends? They're both lizards, like what if Trandoshan friends?
What if Herchik is like the Steve Urkel to Bosk's, Carl? Like, what if he's the annoying shorter, like, I don't know, I just, in my mind, he's more like a whinier Trandoshan. And that
what if they're like Thelma and Louise, and they just get, like they drink all that blue milk and go out for a joyride?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And the only way you're going to do it is by, if me and you were sitting at our homes, we don't have a giant suit, we don't have actors. So we're going to get these little toys. And what's the craziest thing is that's what Robert Rodriguez does. Like he's getting these little toys, moving them around, and to show people what the episode for Book of Boba Fett's going to be like. He makes these, if you watch the making of Boba Fett stuff, Robert Rodriguez runs, has to show what the scenes are going to look like. And a lot of times he's grabbing little toys, and actually that's what Steven Spielberg does with like car chases. I mean, we're all like, they're playing with toys like us. Like there's nothing. And that's where all but yeah, back to so the Obi-Wan trailer, like the Obi-Wan
exactly.
Yeah, back to the Obi-Wan trailer, man. Yeah, when I first started, I was like, definitely, I think I said this before, but when Obi comes back on, I'm like, man, if you think Obi-Wan Kenobi is cute, this show is gonna make him look like a beautiful man, like he's like I don't know about you, but the other thing I was thinking about was like, man, since the last time he filmed, the prequels, Obi-Wan has really become he's become a Buddhist motorcycle rider, like wandering motorcycle traveler who believes in Buddhism, and like or Zen. I mean, he's got these altruistic religious beliefs and stuff, but it's just like, like the dude is a wandering samurai already,
right? Yeah, like some of the most amazing things you can watch with Ewan just outside of like fictional film is like his stuff with his buddy Charlie, where they're just
When they,
like, hey, what
when they
if
go down
like, yeah,
the
because there was,
motorcycle,
was
they're
it
running-
right after, was it right after Revenge of the Sith? The first one was right after Revenge of the Sith, I think.
Yeah,
And they went around, like they drive, they get these, they do the test run of, do we want a Honda, do we want a BMW, do we want, you know, what kind of motorcycle is gonna last this trip? And they go from London literally around the entire world, and the only time that they don't drive is they have to take a flight from New York back to London. But literally they're driving from, you know, across Mongolia, like no roads, no nothing. And then they
No.
went from like, I think they went from the top of Africa
the
to the
dude-
bottom of Africa.
like the dude, like in the space of filming now, between now and like Revenge of the Sith, and I'm not discounting that the guy probably lived like a super wild life. I mean, this is the same actor that like is, I mean, really great actor. You know, obviously so many different performances, but this is the same dude from Trainspotting. You know, like that's what I was thinking. Was I was like watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer, and I'm like this is the same dude who like gave us this crazy tour de force performance like in Trainspotting. You know,
Right.
from Trainspotting to Obi-Wan. And he's just like become more and more Obi-Wan as time goes on, you know, like,
Yeah, I think he's like
I mean,
become that character basically.
I mean, he's definitely got like, yeah, there's definitely differences. I mean, the dude is an actor, so like he's a fantastic actor and he can do anything. I don't doubt you. You know, like I'm sure he's going to deliver. Also, like I have to be frank. So when you were talking before about Filoni understanding Star Wars, one thing I noticed also when I watched the Obi-Wan trailer was like, you know, never doubt Deborah Chow, man.
No,
you know?
not for a second.
She has some of the best Mandalorian episodes besides Rick Famuyiwa. You know, Famuyiwa. Oh my God, I hope I said it right because I love the episodes and his work. Yeah, dude, the guy. I mean, both of them, but Deborah Chow's episodes were amazing as well. And you know, she has the one where he rescues the child, right? If I'm not.
Yeah, the Sin, I think, is the title of it. It's the third episode of season 1.
Yeah, when he rescues the child, I mean, that's like so many things going on. You know, it's dark. It's, you know, it's a little bit Born Identity. It's a little, you know, it's like a little,
Yeah.
He's got like, you know, she had the episode where she had to explain with pictures that Baby Yoda was getting his bone marrow extracted. You know, like you know,
Right. Like, how do you? Yeah, you don't want to take it to too dark of a place because kids are going to be watching this Baby Yoda. But how do you? You know, how can my kid watch it? But then me as the adult in the room go, oh my God, they're torturing this poor child. Like,
I mean,
and she delivers on it.
Oh my God, she delivers. I mean, it's just, it's a smart, it's a fast, it's I mean, there's
And
so
like,
many great,
how do you, she also
her.
pumps in Mandalorian lore of like how the Children of the Watch have been operating in silence for all these years. And like for a Mandalorian and Boba Fett super fan like me, it's like, you know, how many of us have been watching, you know, or reading comics, books, and all those things. And it's like, okay, so you're the first person who's doing a big on-screen Mandalorian, you know, shootout. Don't screw it up. And she totally doesn't. Like 30 or 40 Mandalorians coming in with the jetpacks. It's the first time we got to see. I remember when we were doing review episodes, me and my brother for the first season, Samuel told me, he goes, man, all I want from this season, he was like, I want a good story. He's like, the little practical effect that I want is I want to see a heads up display view of a Mandalorian helmet. I just want to see what it looks like. And literally like one of the opening scenes from chapter 3 was it's Mando's heads up display. And I called him and he was like, I'm seeing it too. And so it was cool. She delivered, and it's like, it's almost, and I think this will be great in Obi-Wan is I think she delivers without like, it doesn't have to be everything explained via dialogue. Like she's such a great visual storyteller as well as writer. So I think that's really going to help in the Obi-Wan series.
I mean, the Mandalorian season is like you know, everybody. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most popular. I'm sure when I talk about it, everybody's already, you know. But I think the weird was what really like threw me for like, you know, a loop, loving it. You know, like I was loving I never realized that I would watch an episode with the Mandalorian where like Jawas are praying to the egg, you know, and like they're
right.
Like, Cadbury egg, you know, and I thought that was just amazing, all of it. You know, I love it all, man. I love it, especially when it gets weird. Like in the Obi-Wan trailer, back again to the Obi-Wan trailer, I think it's like the second or third shot. and there's the dude with the giant like, you know, monkey proboscis like nose, you know, like sitting right behind him in this like trailer moving along, which is like, and I love that like in that shot, like everybody is just like generally depressed or grim on
Everyone
their way
looks so freaking miserable on that train, dude.
Everyone looks it's like, oh god, I'm going on my way to work, you know, like it's like, and you know, and there's something so good about that, like, because it's just like, okay, now you got me, like
yeah,
like, now I believe you know, because I'm not going to work like, yeah, I'm in
Yeah.
Star Wars, like
Yeah.
I'm going to work like, okay, you know, like
Yeah, it's funny because it's like
like, let's go.
Obi-Wan's going through it, like, you know, he's not in a good way because of the emotional and spiritual distress he's in, but it's like they look just as depressed and irritated as he is, and like he's gone through some heavy crap, and they're literally just like, freaking Monday again, god. They look so miserable.
It's the subway. It's like that's what I got. I was like, yeah, like whoever wrote this or took a shot is like definitely been on a subway before, you know, like nobody's like, you know, we a lot of us like our jobs. Like I like my job too, but when I'm on the subway, I'm just like, okay, you know, I'm getting my coffee in my system, I'm getting ready to get going. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna be good, you know. But it's like, or maybe it's coming home, you know, get tired. Maybe that. I don't know, man. There's a lot of sand out there, you know. So maybe
oh my gosh.
you know, the one thing I don't get is like, how come they're not sweaty? Like, you know, like I'm always like, man, if I was out in there, I'd be the sweatiest Jedi you ever saw. Or
100%.
like that. I would take off that helmet and I'd just shake it for a second. You know?
Well, that's what they were saying, is like when they were filming in Tunisia for A New Hope, they were saying that they got like either like active or ex-Marines to do the sand trooper bits because they had the most, you know, armor and all sort of stuff on that was adding to the heat. And they were saying it was miserable for however many days they were there because the guys would take their helmets off between shots and, like you were saying, just drenched in sweat. But
yeah, the Kenobi trailer. Sorry, I thought it was amazing. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I was just thinking that same thing. Like I would be drenched in sweat.
I'm just gonna, maybe I can get this guy to sit with me for a little bit here. This guy, anytime I see these guys running around, I don't think he's in the Kenobi trailer, but I think it was in the not gonna work. But I think he was in when he was in the Mandalorian. I loved it, and in Book of Boba. I think that the I mean, I hate to say it, but I kind of already knew that it was going to be good. You know, the Obi-Wan, you know, bringing back the Inquisitors. I love the Inquisitors storylines from the Rebels. You know, it took me a minute to kind of get that it was like the Grand Inquisitor. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe you know, I think, man, when that lightsaber spins around that circle, dude, I'm all in. I mean, I'm all into the characters, and you know, yeah, they look different than the cartoon, but yeah, the cartoon is a cartoon. It's a very
that's something that I was talking to my buddy Caleb today about the Book of Boba, and then kind of getting into the trailer a little bit with him before we really hit our gear. But it's interesting because I was telling you, I was watching The Hobbit last week with my family, and I just texted a couple of friends from high school that were in this chat, and I was like, hey, this is just a reminder, if you guys have any extra time, like go rewatch The Hobbit. So good. And I have a friend who's a big Lord of the Rings fan, but did not like The Hobbit. And he's told me like, I can't watch it. It sucks. And I asked him like, what was your thought? And one of the things he complains about is Lord of the Rings is all practical effects. And like the costumes are just, you could tell there's a lot of time and effort and stuff put into the Urukai and stuff like that. And I was telling him, I was like,
that movie's pretty CG, dude. Like that's some of the great, like the war. Sorry, I mean to
well, that's the thing is like, I think sometimes CG is so good that we don't realize it's even in play.
I'm sorry.
I was saying, I think it's sometimes we take for granted what's CG and what's not CG. Like I think you could like the same way that you could look at the Phantom Menace and everybody complained that there was so much CG and but there's so many times that they're wrong, that it's miniatures, like all of Kate City is a giant miniature. But beautiful. I was telling my buddy Caleb today about, for instance, like Cad Bane. I thought for however many people were mad that his mouth was higher than it should have been for the cartoon, if they went with CG, right? Because there's no human that their mouth is right here, like it is with the Duros in cartoon. For all of the people who would rather it be CG so that it's more accurate to the cartoon, i.e. the Inquisitor, there's the other side of the coin where if they did that, somebody would be mad that it wasn't practical enough of effects.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just, it's to
As a-
me, it's like, dude, we're getting more immersive, more connective Star Wars. Like if the Grand Inquisitor looks more like a regular head shape, like it's not gonna, I was telling them during the podcast today, like, why would you forfeit the benefit of getting new and great Star Wars because there was one thing that you wish they did differently? You know what I mean?
Oh, I like it all, man. I mean, the goofier the better. Like, you know, like the weirder. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the samurai. Yeah, the samurai too. Yeah, the you know, I get loud. Sorry. Yeah, I like the samurai stuff, and I like the you know the wars, the Clone Wars, and you know, I like all of it. But I also like the goofy, and I think like you know the thing about Cad Bane that totally just locked in for me was like looking at that original picture from the cantina, like you know, of the Duros in the cantina.
Mhm.
That's what he looks like. You know, he looks like the
Right.
original. They're going back to, people forget that Cad Bane is a Duros, which is you know based on a character from a live action. You know, he's a animation based on a live action, and they actually made him look a little different than the real mask that people were wearing.
Right.
And then when they did the Book of Boba Fett and brought back Cad Bane, they went back to those original masks, and,
Right.
you know, and made them look like the masks from the Cantina bar, which they actually were, I think, more accurate. You know, like the people that did the costumes were doing a lot of diligence to be faithful to the characters.
Yeah.
Like it didn't look like the cartoon because the cartoon looked different from the original, you know, mask. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's really,
crap.
I saw a funny meme where it
Yeah.
was like, why can't they be true to the character, make it look like Cad Bane? And somebody was like, imagine if all the characters look like their real, like the cartoon version, and it showed like the Tarkovsky Dooku with like the beard that's like this
Oh, yeah.
big. And it
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
you guys
exactly.
realize it's a stylized cartoon version
I mean,
of
yeah.
this character.
But also like that goes back to like the whole like you know, it's Star Wars, it's an interpretation every time, you know, when it switches mediums. You know, the radio dramas that came out before had different voices for some characters. You know, like I welcome the reimagining of Star Wars characters in, you know, Gendy's version, which is, you know, totally different. Yeah, it's all just an evolution. It's all good. It looks great. I didn't bump on any of that stuff. What I was waiting for was just like, you know, just give me more, and you know, what else, what more from the expanded universe can we dig into, you know, because like all that stuff is
Right.
great, really well written stuff. I mean, the Dark Horse series, Dark Horse comics have a lot of really great storylines that I dig. You know, man, in Book of Boba Fett, when that Black Wookiee came on screen, man, that got real serious for me. I was like, man, I think I love you right now, bro. You know, like I think I don't care what he does, just give me more of it. You know,
Yeah.
Fight, you know, scream, bite, whatever you need to do. I'll watch whatever happens on screen with that Black Wookiee. That was awesome. I love that. I love the jokes when he rips the arms off of the Trandoshan, even though she tells him not to, even though he looks like for a second he might not. That was like a total.
Yeah,
like,
she's like, well, you know what?
yeah, John Belushi.
You put this guy down and we'll cancel your debt. And he's thinking like, that's worth it, and just decides to rip the arm anyway.
Yeah, because he's a joke. So that was great. I mean, oh, sorry, still trying to finish Obi-Wan trailer. So yeah, I mean, the Inquisitors look great. I think there's an Inquisitor in there I think I've seen only in the cartoons where it has like the appendages to her head that kind of flies by real quick. That seems really cool. I think this new world that kind of looks a lot to me like it actually reminds me of the failed Star Wars TV show, the one that was you know, where it's supposed to take place in this like the lower depths of Coruscant kind of thing.
Oh yeah, the 1313, I think. Yeah,
1313. Yeah, it reminded me, that world reminded me a lot of the 1313 stuff. You know, the Coruscant kind of, but I mean, it's looking a little bit different. The soundtrack, I was trying to, man, you know, that's the thing that really got me actually too, was the minute that like Duel of the Fates, is it Duel of the Fates, right? When that keyed in, I was just like, that was a great cue to kind of build.
I thought it was such a great cue, and at the same time, it did such a great job of like absolutely confusing me, like not in a sense of like, what's this for? Like, I understand that, but it's so crazy how like as soon as I hear that, I think about well, I guess I was wondering, like, man, we're so far from Maul being on Tatooine. I don't, maybe they're not referencing that, but the cool thing about the music and that scene, and like, even if you go back and you like do research
Well,
on when he was writing Duel of the Fates, like it's like a, he took, if you look at the lyrics, I was actually watching a video about this today. The lyrics are from like this old poem or something. And John Williams said the idea was it was almost like a ritual that was taking place, and it's the two sides of the force that are like battling back in this ritualistic thing.
yeah, it's not a
And
Maul thing. It's a Hayden versus it's a Darth Vader versus it's a Anakin versus Obi-Wan.
so I'm thinking of Duel of the
Revenge.
Fates.
No, it's
Battle of the
not
Heroes. Battle of the Heroes is the one you're talking
Battle of the
about.
Heroes.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Sorry, I called it Duel of the Fates now. No, my wife's gonna be like, "How could you do that?" Uh, yeah, I mean, no, the song. It's the same song with Anakin and
Yeah.
Obi. That's
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
mean,
dude, it's so like, I think it's so interesting, but even like that even kind of plays into the point I was even making of, you hear Duel of the Fates whenever if that's the first big musical cue, like that when
okay,
it gets really loud, and then Battle of the Heroes also plays, and I was thinking like,
Battle of the
man,
Heroes is what.
it's so crazy that he's going through, like, it's almost like he's replaying like everything that's happened to this moment. What could I, because Obi-Wan is he's the thinker, like Anakin's the one that just goes and does things. Like, we're in the war and he's like, whatever, I was gonna make this plan. Obi-Wan's the like, how can we do this better? Like, he's the thinker, he's the negotiator. So like, imagine someone who's more of a doer is probably quicker to forgive themselves because they're like, well, I did what I could do. But Obi-Wan, it's almost probably more torturous for him because he's the negotiator, because he's the thinker, and he's going back and playing chess against himself of, since Naboo, like, what could I have done differently? Could I have done something differently to save Qui-Gon? If I save Qui-Gon, is Anakin's life different? Is the world different? It's just
Yeah,
like, it's
I
just
think
this heavy concept,
I think we're getting Liam. I'm hoping. Like I would love to see a Force Ghost of Liam Neeson with the hair extensions,
Oh
just like
man.
in a
I
giant
feel like
robe,
I
just
feel
like
like that's who he's talking
floating in
to.
this sand, like floating in the air. I'm like, man, hopefully, I don't know, maybe not, but who cares? They always surprise you. Like
Mhm.
Lucasfilm is so good about like keeping everything on lid, like and I like being surprised. Also, that's the other thing too, is I think a lot of people compare the new streaming stuff to like what they can like. They're like, where are we going to see this thing that we saw in the movies? And it's like, well, yeah, you want the callbacks, but honestly, I want new. Like I want
Right.
the like I want was it Kreese? What are the other Mandalorian
Yeah,
guard
Bo-Katan and all them.
with Bo-Katan? Like I want give me both. Like sure, but I'm actually for like new characters. Like give them
Yeah.
like that's great too. Like I like the Force wielders, but I'm also kind of into like personally understanding what the average person is doing there. Like
Mhm.
what's that like for somebody that walks around with strange aliens and space warriors and bounty hunters, and I mean those are the cool guys too.
Yeah.
That's what in the Mandalorian stuff too, because it was like a chance to kind of dude, I've always wondered, like, what is it like for those people that are not they're not able to make things fly across the room?
Right.
Like imagine if you're watching all these people doing all that stuff and trying to make a living and get water. Oh, that's
Yeah.
Joel Edgerton. I mean, right? I mean, dude.
Yeah. Uncle Owen.
Uncle Owen is amazing. I mean, she looked. That's what Deborah Chow said. I think in an interview, she said like
I'm so
something.
glad that George casted Joel Edgerton.
Yeah. I mean, dude, the guy is a fantastic actor.
Mhm.
We're gonna see him go. Now he's in his prime, or he's gotten older, more experienced as an actor. So I mean, I can only imagine what he's gonna deliver. It looks like in the trailer, by the way, there's some feet swinging, and like I immediately got this reference of it's like the public hangings,
Yeah. Oh
or
yeah.
and so I'm like, and the quizzer's there, and she's doing something. She's looking at everybody else, kind of like, yeah, kind of thing, and
Mhm.
like, yeah, I did that, and that's what's gonna happen to everybody else, and that whole vibe, I was like, wow, like this is gonna
Yeah,
be.
I think it's like, you know, before, or in an average society, um, you can't just come in and put on a show and like make an example of somebody. Like things need to happen in silence. You know what I mean? But then you have this moment where it's like the Empire's taken over. The Inquisitors have direct direction from Vader, who has direction from Palpatine, wipe these guys out. And obviously, if, you know, who knows if they're looking specifically for Obi-Wan, but, you know, they're looking for someone on Tatooine. They obviously feel like they know something. And it's such a dark feeling to look and be like, she can publicly just murder somebody and be like, so who's next? Unless I get this information. Like there's no tact about it. And that makes it even more terrifying. Is there doesn't have to be any like under the table dealing. She's just going to murder people until she gets what she wants. And I think that just ups the stakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I keep.
No, you're good.
And I'm like, okay. Yeah, no, I think that I think that it's going to be the, you know, the persecution of the Jedi. This is the time when the Jedi were hunted, you know, for being them. And there's something like really deep there that like I think we can all kind of like, yeah, you know, like understand, you know, like, okay, so there's these people that are special and they have to hide and that's basically what's happening. Is that's the dark times, right? It's like the thing I think is the evolution that I expect from this season is to just kind of understand how Obi-Wan goes from, you know, this, you know, badass, you know, I don't know if that's a bad word, this tough army general that's like,
right,
you know, led Clone Wars and, you know, cut through Sith or bad guys, you know, that cut through all the bad guys and robots like butter and you know, witness the terrors of Order 66, you know, and then you know, I feel like the beginning of that show, if you look at the timeline, you know, Obi-Wan is a very active person, you know, like he's not reactive. He's actually, you know, he wants to, in a way, keep the universe safe, you know, help keep the universe safe. And so that's the fight, right? Is that he wants to keep the universe safe, but he has to stay here and protect Luke because he's the chosen one, right? So the beginning of that show, I'm sure that he starts out with the friction of wanting to make noise and cause change, but then you know, by the end of that, he's got to be the old hermit that we meet in Star Wars, you know, like the one that goes like hello there finally, and that old hermit is a, you know, crotchety old man, you know, and he's kind of like, and he's kind of like
seems much more distant from society than the guy that's mingling around with everyone, you know, like
yeah, the implication is like, what did he see that made him give up on everything?
Yeah, like Obi-Wan from 77 wouldn't ride the train with everybody in a bad mood, or he wouldn't be cutting meat in the market with everybody. Like when he walks into a place, like I feel maybe there's tales about some guy that's been around that has power that we don't understand or whatever, but he doesn't have it in A New Hope, the original Star Wars. It doesn't seem like he has an established relationship with hardly anyone. You know, Owen knows who he is and tries to keep Luke away from him to keep him safe. But other than Owen and Beru, it seems like nobody knows who he is. And it's like something, what's interesting is you go into The Rise of Skywalker, for instance, right? And there are those of us who are like hardcore, like dark side Kylo Ren, whatever it takes, Kylo's going to win. But we all know going like I was saying beforehand, they're not going to do this, but how sick would it be if Palpatine and Kylo win? Like how sick would that be? It'd be so interesting. But we know Star Wars is a greater good story. Like it's good, no matter how dark it gets, good will overcome evil. So we all knew good had to win at the end of episode 9. What's so interesting and foreboding about Obi-Wan Kenobi is it may be a tragic tale for 5 episodes that drives him away from society. Like, I think that opens the horizon for what it could be, because when you look at episode 9, we knew eventually good has to win by the end of the movie. Like, you can't be that panicked. You know what I mean? Like, even if it cost Rey her life, which obviously there was a moment where it almost did, even if it costs you Rey, even if it costs, you know, the ultimate sacrifice of some of our favorite characters, good will always overcome evil. That's one of the stories of the Star Wars saga. With Obi-Wan, because we have this far narrative that we know he's going to survive, I think that it may be a much darker, like sadder show than we realize, because it's got to drive him to that hopelessness. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, that's what I was trying to get at, was that like, yeah, that's where he's going to go from. Is he's
Like it's going to be a rough road to get to the guy you're talking about.
I mean, maybe, right? Like the writers, you know, they know what's going to happen, and they're going to take us on a wild ride. I can't wait. But the thing that I think, I think that we know what happens after the show, you know, and after the show, he's this crotchety old man that doesn't want to talk to anybody. That, you know, Uncle Owen says, "Oh, that guy," you know, he's like, you know, he's like the food, like, don't talk to your crazy uncle anymore, you know, like to Luke and stuff, and he doesn't want to be around anybody. So I mean, if you ask me what I imagined, I would say that he's seen a lot of really crazy stuff and realizes that every time he gets involved in the world, he's actually going to drive, you know, he's going to cause pain, you know, because isn't that thing about the Jedi, is that when, you know, they don't want to be attached to anybody. They don't want to be attached to anybody, because then that can cause, it leads to fear, it leads to anger, you know, and that self-hatred, all that stuff. So if you take the whole samurai thing, you know, together, they're just a wandering nomad, right? Like Lone Wolf and Cub, great samurai story that Jon Favreau and George Lucas and, you know, all these people loved. You know, as well as Throne of Blood and all of these. If you watched it, have you watched any of those Kurosawa films? I mean, Fortress, you know, or I mean, there's Rashomon, but that's not really Star Wars. It's more of Hidden Fortress. Or Yojimbo. I mean, Yojimbo's amazing samurai story. And you know, usually what it is that it's the Mandalorian, right? And is the Mandalorian has the same story as Yojimbo, which, by the way, you know, Fistful of Dollars and you know, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, they follow similar tropes. I mean, I think Fistful of Dollars actually had to pay some kind of money to Kurosawa for Yojimbo, taking the plot.
Oh, wow.
Yojimbo, exactly, because it's a samurai wanders in a little town. You know, there's factions of the town that are trying to They're trying to hire this obviously tough guy to kill the other side. Yeah. Oh, dude, I can't believe you haven't seen Yojimbo. Yojimbo's great.
No, I've seen, like, whenever
the score is actually referenced in Star Wars. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. You'll hear like callbacks to the music, because the music is amazing. And
yeah, like whenever I'm watching behind the scenes stuff, and I see, like, when I was watching behind the scenes for Two Sons, and it showed, you know, the changing of the stance and the little things like that elevate. It shows you how elevated Obi-Wan is as a fighter at this point over Maul. I've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff, but I've never sat down and watched those. But I'm super interested. I love to watch them. So after we get off of here, dude, send me a list.
I mean, well, yeah, they're really simple. Well, they tell a story visually a lot too, you know, and just this idea that there's this guy that, you know, is wandering around, is a nomad, doesn't really have a place to live, and, you know, he just wants to be left alone, you know, and if you push him, he's an amazing samurai, you know, like
it's very similar to the did you like the Star Wars Visions that they put out, those anime? So the story that accompanied one of them, the novel that came out that was called Ronin.
Oh yeah.
I read it. There were obviously there was things that it's a very like in your face, different kind of story than your average Star Wars story. But it's heavy on the Japanese influence, and like I think the author is like, they went and found a young lady, and I think she's Japanese, and they were like, you know, bringing culture in. Like, they wanted to make sure that, like, it's kind of like your project with the Bloodstone, where it's like, hey, these are all like people I specifically chose for their knowledge in this area. You know what I mean? And for their like for their life experiences, or maybe experiences of their family members, or things like that. And specific heritages to pull on to enrich and make the story more authentic. They did that with this young lady as well, to write about the Ronin, which is very similar to what you're talking about, where it's like, guy comes in, it's him and his droid. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He doesn't want your freaking tea. But if you push it, he's an amazing, you know, basically a samurai. But I don't want to spoil it, but it's a pretty cool little bomb that gets dropped of who he is. And like, it's not canon technically. But the knowledge of who he ends up being is like mind blowing. And I would love more stories like that.
Well, and it's the story of like, a man with that tells people he doesn't care about justice in the world and he doesn't care about everything else in the world. But by the end of the story, he's forced to stand up for what's right and what's wrong.
Mhm.
That idea of like, and that's kind of what's Mandalorian is. If you think about it, is like, Mandalorian is this, supposedly a cold-blooded killer, a cold-blooded kidnapper, and he doesn't care about anything except for making money until he does. And
Mhm.
that switches the very first episode. They're literally, before the whole thing even takes off and running with the story, it's like, here's this guy that doesn't care, that only wants to make money, doesn't care about that stuff, doesn't care about anybody's rules. That in their world, he only cares about his rules. By the
Mhm.
end of the episode, his whole life is turned upside down when he realizes he cares about protecting this child.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and that's the beauty. It's the Mando dad show. like,
Right.
like that
Exactly.
all of us. Yeah, and I mean, it's a crazy world we live in, and when you're a dad, you want to protect your kids, so everybody
Yeah.
watched that. Like, yeah, I get it. Dude, it's a
Yeah.
crazy world where there's lizards and stuff, and they want to eat them. So, I'm sorry. This is probably is this the longest podcast you've
No.
done?
No.
We're,
Wait. The one I recorded today was an hour and 10 minutes.
oh, oh
we're
yeah. So,
we're at like maybe just around an hour, so we're probably good.
yeah, I don't mean to talk everybody to death, man. I get like interested in talking about these things, but yeah, I think the show looks great. I'm excited. Deborah Chow can't she's gonna deliver something that's gonna be amazing. I already know it.
Mhm.
Book of Boba Fett was great. There was one episode, I one episode that really I thought was rad, and I think there was a moment in episode 2 when a lizard runs into his nose, and he
Yeah.
has a vision in the desert where he talks to a tree and picks out his stick, and man, that is all me. That was when I was sold. I was like,
Yeah.
like that was the
I was like,
best.
dude, this
Like,
guy's doing Tuscan ayahuasca right now. Like he's having
he's
a
doing
soul experience.
I was like, is Boba going on a peyote trip right now?
Right. Right.
And he's and ayahuasca, or he's doing, I was just like, oh my god, this is great. And then I thought it was great. That was one of my, there's some great stuff there. Of course, I'm a big fan of Mandalorian. I think just in general, TV is a great spot for Star Wars. I mean,
Yeah.
it should
You
be
get to
obvious.
you get to tell a longer, uh, more in-depth story. I feel like you have more time to mess with.
And Favreau gets it. I mean, you talk about Filoni. I think Filoni's great. Obviously, there's a lot of really smart people there. I mean,
Mhm.
frankly, and there's a lot of people like us that have grown up on Star Wars that are, really smart. And I think, I mean, there's another show that that nobody's really even talked about with about the Sith, the Acolyte.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you haven't seen Russian Doll, man, Russian Doll is an amazing show. They got her to do that. They got the same creative team to do the Acolyte, I don't know how to pronounce it. And I haven't heard anything about that show.
Yeah. Me neither.
I'm like, wow, I don't even know what they're going to be doing. But
The
or
one
just
thing,
as the Lando show, and he hasn't said anything about that.
right.
And he just did the Haunted Mansion. They just finished shooting on the Haunted Mansion movie, so he's hilarious. Like
Mhm.
if you ever hear his podcast, Justin Simeon has a podcast too, and he's hilarious and he's deep into Star Wars. Like, he's a lover.
Which you want someone funny to do Lando because he's such a lovable, funny character, even sometimes at his own expense.
You gotta have, that was the thing that was missing from the Solo for me, was like, actually, like, and Glover is fantastic in every way. Like, he definitely delivered whatever he needed to do. But for me, like, I felt like, yeah, like there was, dude, like, if you get a real like comedy writer on a Lando show, it's gonna be, all that in the bag of chips.
Mhm. I think so too.
Yeah, Justin Siemens is a smart, creative dude, and I've seen his podcast is great. If you haven't heard it, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of great stuff. I mean, this is the thing, is these people can hire anybody right now. I mean,
Right.
Disney Plus really has a choice of whoever they want, and everybody wants to work on Star Wars. I mean, who doesn't?
Right.
Maybe some people that don't want to get, the fans on, following the Twitter and coming to their
Sure.
houses.
Sure.
But yeah, there's some great people on there, and it's hard to do wrong. There's a droid show, by the
Yeah.
way. Like, I was like,
Well, hey, something I heard that was really crazy. I can't remember the company, but there was a company that I guess they're like a symphony company or a music industry company that recently either was working with licenses or talking about tracks or releasing projects. Maybe it was like an infomercial on like upcoming, like almost like what Disney does with like investor videos and stuff. And they talked about doing a full orchestra for an upcoming unnamed Star Wars cartoon show. And the rumor is it's for Tales of the Jedi.
Oh man, I mean, yeah, that's yeah. Like I said,
don't even get me started on Tales of the Jedi. We'd be here for another 3 hours with all Exar Kun and all that stuff from all the million years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the expanded universe has a lot of really interesting characters. Trying to think of the ones that I really gravitate towards. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think that, I mean, the thing is that you can reference the expanded universe and then do whatever you want with it afterward. You know, like I have, there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's I'm big fan of Dengar. You know, like I loved. I always imagined that Solo before it came out. I was like, man, that'd be really cool if there was something about, you know, how these guys were friends, and like, you know, like Dengar and Solo were friends, and then they like, you know, they got into a giant accident, right? It was an speeder accident, and then Dengar is, that's why Dengar is so disfigured and messed up, you know, from that, and that's why he hates Solo so much, you know, and like this like
I think it would have been really cool to see Dengar in Solo. I thought it would have been cool if like if there was just like, if you gave me like 15 more minutes and you're like, okay, Joe, what can you do to add to this story that lifelong fans will love, and it doesn't take you out of the feel. It would have been cool if whatever
spider legs Darth Maul.
Yeah, well, that would be sick. But like whatever, like maybe the White Worm Gang is like, hey, well, then you got to win us this money back at this big race. You know what I mean? Like almost like a Tokyo Drift type thing, right? And you get there and they're like, yeah, but you can't beat this guy over there. And you look over and it's a young Dengar, and Han Solo wins the race, but in typical Han Solo fashion, he leaves or something like that, where like you just have a little Easter egg there, but it would still contribute to the story. But hey, so give me one character, if you want to go back to some of your expanded universe, toy collecting, all that stuff. If you could see one character that's a little bit out of left field during the Kenobi show that makes sense, who would, if they called and they said, hey, Rick, we just want one little Easter egg for the fans at home who are like a little bit of a deeper dive, who's a character you would want to bring into the Kenobi show?
Oh man. I mean, honestly, it's not that deep, but like, I'm like, where's Forlom and Zuckuss? Like, I mean, I don't know if they're like early on or something. Maybe they're getting assembled, you know, who knows? I mean, that's like, I think Forlom and Zuckuss are the two characters that like are pretty well known, but yet we haven't seen them really be, you know, killers.
Anything.
The lore for them is that like that killers. IG was already filled out, right? Like I was just like, dude, I would love to see this like awesome, like, you know, some justification to how crazy they are. I mean, those are not from the expanded universe though. Really, the storylines are from there. But like, if I was really to dive into characters, I mean, man, there's a lot. I think, you know. Man, I'd love to see some robots. I'd love to see some Super Trooper action, but that's already been done. Dark Trooper action, but that's already been done. I mean, a Thrawn opening is there, you know, for sure. You know, if they in that timeline, is he still?
Oh yeah.
No, can he be alive?
So Thrawn at this point in the timeline is let me look. Thrawn.
I think getting a lot of that in the Ahsoka show, dude. Honestly.
Oh yeah, Thrawn is going to be the Thanos of the Mandoverse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's what I think that's going to be in the Ahsoka show. Man, I mean, they really do a good job. They've covered so many people. You know, I think even down to the making the reference to the ice cream maker guy. I think I'd love to see Cal Fast. I'd love to see you know, more Wookiee versus more Trandoshan action. That'd be great. Man, if I was gonna put in Obi-Wan, I think a Zuckuss and Forlom callback would be fun, where he has to, you know, maybe he barely gets away by the skin of his teeth, kind of thing, you know, like they're surprisingly lethal, you know, because
Yeah, because they're kind of
movies,
goofy looking.
they're so goofy looking, but if they're surprisingly lethal, you know, just like dude,
Yeah,
IG-88 was surprisingly, it was totally goofy looking. He's,
yeah,
you know, he's got like, you know, bathroom parts on his body, you know, like,
right.
but you know, the Mandalorian saw like, okay, he's a robot. He can basically be Terminator, which is basically what Forlom and Zuckuss can be, right? Because Forlom and Zuckuss are this like collective
It's
consciousness.
weird because so
You know?
Zuckuss is a Gand, which is an alien species,
Oh,
but it's so weird that they designed him as a sentient, like biological character to look exactly like his counterpart, who is completely robotic. It's just so like,
well,
but
no,
it's-
maybe
but it works,
robot, but maybe the robot is meant to look like the Gand.
right? Maybe so.
That's what I'm saying, is there's a lot to play with there. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm trying to think of another character that I'd really like to see. They have Ahsoka in there already from a lot of stuff. I mean, she was like my number one character. I really would love to see, you know, maybe a young Mace Windu, maybe bring back some is what's his name still alive? From Rogue One. Oh my god, I can't believe it's my birthday. You come here to kill me, you know, like
Saw Gerrera.
Saw Gerrera is a great character.
Saw Gerrera is still alive. Mace Windu, it'd be cool if like, yeah, if he had survived somehow. I know Samuel L. Jackson's like 3,000% on board to come back. Whether
Well,
he's
no,
but you could get him in a
yes,
flashback if you wanted.
no.
Like if he survived, that would be a huge reveal.
Oh man, I wish I had my custom. I made a custom survived. Remember, I had a custom
Yeah.
a Mace Windu, because there's, you know, no body, no death, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, no body dead. He's not dead.
Right.
I think that if I saw him, you know, he could be alive with like a robot hand, you know, like, and just like all gnarly with like, you know, like scars and just you know, totally be, man, maybe that's
Dude,
what happened.
Yeah, imagine, I was gonna say, imagine if you see Mace and he's just completely dismantled emotionally, and that's almost what, like, Mace is such a strong-willed guy. It would be so heartbreaking for Obi-Wan to see this guy that everybody looked up to, and Mace is like, forget it, you know, who cares anymore?
with like a glass eye.
That would be so heartbreaking, but so epic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like if he is a shell of himself, maybe he's a Sith. You know, like,
oh my gosh.
If Mace Windu, you know, these are just like spitballing, but what if Mace Windu is a Sith and he's all like repaired with metal, and he's just like, you know, maybe he's so angry at getting Darth Vader that he's, you know, I don't know, maybe that doesn't make that much sense, but like he's just so bitter and crunchy, you know, but he could also just be, maybe he's alive and he's still good, and maybe he's still on the good side and robotic and, you know, put together, but when he tries to help, maybe the last thing he does to help Obi-Wan, you know, is to get off the planet Daiyu or something. He gets like killed by the Inquisitor, and Obi-Wan, and that's the call to action that says, to tell Obi-Wan at the end of season 1, like, okay, you know, like I can't keep showing my face, because every time good people are dying, like Mace, you know,
that would just be another level of heartbreak that just drives him off, you know.
Yeah, I mean, all of that. Oh, that's the queen. Well, she's dead, right? In the Mandalorian Wars, the Queen of Mandalore.
Yeah. Satine.
Oh, I mean, that's what I want to see. Actually, I want to see that, like, him remembering being in love.
Yeah. You could do some great, like, some callback work. They've done great callback work with the Mandalorian and Boba Fett, where it doesn't feel clunky. It feels like it's actually adding to the character. So you could totally do that, I think.
Like, yeah, like, why not see him being in love with, you know, Satine, you know, and you know, realizing he made a mistake.
Yeah.
That he should have with her, and that he should have, you know, showed her that he loved her, and I mean, that's sappy stuff, but man, you know, I'm all.
But it adds to the character, you know.
Yeah, I think he's there. I think he is that person. You know, I think all of that is there. You know, so obviously
I'll give you 2 characters I would love to see, and anyone who watches the show knows one of them I'm going to say right off the bat. But these are 2 characters that I think in the expanded universe survived Order 66. One of them lives long enough that is he's post a bunch of eras, and he lives into the legacy era. But a Jedi who probably knows how to survive because he knows how to bend the rules is Quinlan Voss.
Oh, yeah, of course. Quinlan Voss.
Quinlan Voss would be amazing.
I just want to see those. You know, see that get up again. Like, give me that guy. Yeah. I mean,
and a counterpart to Quinlan Voss would be Master Kakruk.
Oh my god, yeah, dude, that's what do you hold? You're holding like a jewel right there, bro.
Dude,
That's
this is a
like,
gem right here.
like you open that?
This is literally just on my
The
desk at
original
all
Black
times.
Series. What is
But
that, like
I think,
400?
dude,
Oh,
I think now this guy's like, I don't know, between 200 and 300, I guess.
oh man.
But I mean,
What
those
if
are two
what
characters
if
that we know. I mean, we know for a fact Quinlan Voss survived Order 66 because in the Vader comics, when the Emperor is showing him a list of people that they need to find, when you translate the Arubesh, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and then Quinlan Voss is one of those names.
uh,
But in
uh,
Legends,
he's
uh,
slippery.
yeah, in Legends, Kakruk lives long enough that he actually ends up being one of the Jedi that trains Cade Skywalker, who is Luke's great grandson. So his species is super long lived, super slippery. In the Gindi Clone Wars, everybody thought that that Grievous killed him and he ended up surviving. So maybe those are characters that, like, you know, if there is a reason he has to get off world. When the show was first announced, I was thinking, what are they going to do? Be on Tatooine for 5 years? But I think maybe the Inquisitors getting word of somebody being on Tatooine, actually it's safer for Luke for him to leave to pull the enemy away from Luke.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where you can bring in some of these other characters that it wouldn't make sense for Voss to go back to Tatooine, for Kakruk to go to Tatooine, but there could be some of these characters that he links up with or whatever. And maybe
Voss
it's similar.
why can't Voss go back to Tatooine?
I'm just saying it wouldn't. It's I'm saying, like, I think he would go somewhere else in my mind. Like he would go somewhere. I guess his man, what is his species?
I think
Have the Dagum line. Anyways, they live in like a more like humid environment. Like I would think he would want to go somewhere more comfortable.
I would be down with yeah. That'd be funny to see like Operensis somewhere, you know, like the
Oh
whole,
my goodness.
like I said, I want to see some weird stuff, man. Like Roran Karov, you know, although I guess he died in the Gandhi Clone Wars, you know, like I want to see some crazy looking alien Jedis. I like the weird. I like the alien guys. I got to be.
Oh yeah.
Honest. But also, I don't think I really need that. I mean, there's Jedi, I'm sure, but there's also like interesting characters, you know, throughout that we could go. Lando. And,
yeah, like
know,
I would love to see
a young Lando.
Even people who aren't like necessarily named characters. Like I have a big question for Lucasfilm, which is, when are we finally going to get a Bothan on screen? We've never seen a Bothan on screen before. We've name dropped him in Return of the Jedi, but we've never seen him on screen. So we'll see.
Isn't there? I mean, well, I'm going through the Jedi right now. I'm trying to think of Jedi that I might. If I had to think about Jedi, that's the thing. You know, like you know, maybe this is the year that we get you know, not Yaro Peeth, not Sassy Tin. Sassy Tin could be cool. I don't know. There's a lot of like really cool, just the way that they look. But I mean, like I said, they can go. There's so many different ways to go with it.
Yeah.
I think they'll be cool. It'd be cool to see some robots. If I could see some more robot action, that'd be great for me. I know. Man, there was some. I mean, you could. That'd be funny if Grievous or something. You know, like somehow there's like
something crazy.
Yeah, like there's a Grievous kind of thing where, you know, like that he's still alive, or they're making more Grievouses. You know.
Yeah.
He has to
well, it's interesting because
the factory Grievous clones.
Yeah, because like he had all those extra parts and stuff in the Clone Wars. It'd be crazy if like if he came across just a mask and freaked out. But that's a great segue actually, before we sign off. So something that's really cool about Ricardo is, you've heard him say before that he's, you know, was moving into trying to be extra creative in different areas. So you did a Star Wars short film, the Citadel Scavenger, which is on YouTube. And if you'll text me link to that, I'll put some of those in the description. But secondly, something that this is like literally hot off the press. You've been working on a project called the Bloodstone, which is an original comic that you authored. And so tell us a little bit about this comic. It's not Star Wars, but there's definitely a Star Wars feel to some lore that's being told and things like that, supernatural experiences. So tell us about the Bloodstone and where'd you get the idea, and just without having to walk us through the storyline so that people will go and buy it to read it, but kind of give us a little bit of a lowdown on what they're looking at if they're interested in this story.
Yeah, the Bloodstone is it's basically like a myth, like it's a magical stone that gives the power that gives power to the weak and the innocent. And basically it's a story about so it's an anthology series, so we're going to tell different stories, but the first story about the Bloodstone is a stone that was created by a Mayan, a woman that was living in a Mayan village as the conquistadors attacked, and she was the only one to survive. So she takes the soil and the blood and creates this magical stone that gives the power to the weak and the innocent to become something extraordinary. But the problem is that it comes at a price. It's painful. It's not enjoyable, and so the stone ends up falling into the hands of some people that are crossing the border, and when they get attacked, it reveals itself. And we follow in this idea. I had this idea about, like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have the X-Files at the border, or we could have people investigating strange, mysterious monsters and creatures all around the desert and the different border regions. And like, what if there was a way that we could imagine what if we could imagine what justice would look like, and in some way or another, or the power shifted, and so the comic book series, it follows Billy, who's just a regular dad, and he almost dies when he one day encounters this creature, and that kind of sends him spiraling into this world of a secret organization within the government that investigates monsters and ghosts at the border. That's kind of the basic pitch, but
and it's very like you said. I remember when we were talking about just the concept, even before you had a lot of the art back. And before, it was funny, we were texting each other and it was like zoop zoop. As soon as you sent it, I was sending it like, this feels like the X-Files, and you were saying it back. And I don't know if you've watched the show, but I'm a big fan of the show Supernatural with Sam and Dean Winchester. And it's interesting because in those stories, they're monster hunters, where it's like vampires, werewolves, things like that. Like, they're hunting down those characters. And it's interesting because there's in the supernatural universe, there's like an inherent evil to, like, there's no such thing as a good vampire. There's no such good thing as a good werewolf. And as the story progresses, there's at least one or two or a handful of events where it's like, I'm not hurting anybody. This is something I inherited. It's not something that and it kind of expands on the story of what that means. And so it's cool because, without getting into any spoilers or anything, it's there might even be a time that the Bloodstone is it almost seems to act on its own in a sense. It's kind of like, okay, so like, for those,
about Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is that what you get into? Or
well, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about for those who listen to the show, obviously know that I'm working ministry, and one of the craziest verses in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 4, when Cain kills Abel. God talks to Cain and says, "Where is your brother?" And what God tells Cain is, his blood in the soil cries out to me for justice. And that's what I was thinking of when you were telling me about that. Is great. when this gem is created, it seems like, obviously it's created out of the hurt and the pain and the anguish of this Mayan woman, but throughout history, now we're obviously in more modern times, it seems like the soil and the blood and the stone cries out, it seemingly in and of itself, even to an extent, for justice in the lives of these people.
So
I thought that was really cool.
Thank you. That's definitely, so we were talking also via text when I was telling you, and I was like, that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when the Ark is stolen by the Nazis and it just burnt, and it's in a box, and you just see the shot of the box, the Nazi box, holding the Ark, and it burns the Nazi symbol off. And this music, this really spiritual music by John Williams, just kicking it up full board, comes in, and it's just like this idea that God would never let the Nazis hold something so sacred and special. Like, it would never allow itself to be, thing. That idea that like somehow the world is going to right, whatever is like the God spiritual thing, whatever you believe in, it has a way of balancing out, and that's kind of one of those like ideas that I had for the Bloodstone specifically was just like, what if there was this thing that like, and that could do that, but it would come at a price. That's the other thing, is that it would cost you something.
Right.
Get that, because what is justice? You can't justice like the Batman. It's not vengeance.
Right.
So you always give something up. But yeah, and so that's one of the things that we try to. It's a comic book. So like it's a little bit pulpy, kind of gory, but it's I just wanted to kind of explore that a little bit more. And then also like the main character is like a dad and just trying to do his job, like normally trying to do his job, and he kind of falls into this world that that's pretty out there. And so that's
it's very interesting, because it's very similar to our super sick.
Oh, yeah,
it's like a blackish red. I love that. It's like
I'm trying to do these things to trigger like your phone app, so that like there's like an animation, because this was actually like an animation that I did.
Nice. Okay.
That's CG. We should probably but yeah, so yeah, there's and also this other thing about like, there's a lot of Mayan lore that like we haven't really talked about, that's still like cool to explore. There's like giant bat creatures like the Cosmotas that they believed in, that are really really great stories.
Yeah.
Great to see them.
So you've talked about how in the first issue you have things that are going on current day, and then we go back and we're kind of getting the backstory. So is it an accurate assumption or assessment that we will get Billy's story going forward, but we'll also be following the journey of the Bloodstone from where its inception took place?
You get so, because the idea is that the stone was created hundreds of years ago, and it's kind of changed hands many times. And one of the things in the comic that they say is that it only gives power to the weak and innocent, like when they need it. So it actually becomes useless to the rich, and they just forget about it. And that's why we don't know about it today, because they just.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's the whole point of it, is that like to the rich,
it's like the sword and the stone.
It's useless. It's useless to anybody that just buys it and holds it. It only means something when you're under threat, when you're like, when you deserve the power, when deserve it. It's a weird word to use, but something to that extent. So that for a long time it gets forgotten in history, and the rich people toss it aside, and somehow it keeps changing hands and getting around. And so there's all this stuff that we'll kind of refer to here and there. But yeah, Billy's story is he becomes a central character. We learn about this secret part of the government, and there's many different agents that work for this government. And they, how did they get there to work for this agency? Is also interesting. And so there's another character that's coming in issue 2, Reyes, who's this half native woman, and she's just about us again, and she basically becomes, because Billy gets, I don't want to give there's so much
there's a lot,
but he has a cane, is what I'll say. By the end of the episode, he has a cane. Okay, so the issue is it ends up with a cane and messed up, and so his partner ends up becoming more of the the one that does all the talking with her fists. And so there's a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to put everything that I like about monster movies and vampires and all of that, just all mixing it together, but also talking about stuff that actually is happening. Like to me, the modern world is pretty dang scary, I have to be honest. And so I was like, why aren't we just calling those things that are happening around us like just as scary? Why don't we call those people monsters? They are pretty monstrous. So I don't know. That's my
it's a good pitch without giving out too much so they don't have to read it.
Yeah. And also just there's more to the world that we don't know about yet. I love that feeling, like thinking that there's more history that we don't know about yet. Like I worked on a lot of History Channel stuff. I worked on the Hunting Hitler series as an editor in TV, and that's that whole idea of like, wow, there's ruins in the middle of the Amazon, that we don't know about, that are just being found right now. There's a crater that they found the other day. This is real life. They found a crater, one of the biggest craters for an asteroid in Greenland recently in the last 5 years, and it's 1 million years old. And
this is why, and I'm being dead serious, I'm not joking at all. People ask me if I believe if Bigfoot's real, is Sasquatch real? And I tell them I really do. I really do think that for we didn't know that the lowland gorilla lived in South America to like the 1960s or 70s, which in the grand scheme of the whole human history is pretty freaking recent. And so, man, I don't know. I've seen a lot of ancient aliens in my day. So is it an extraterrestrial? Is it a sentient species that hides on purpose? I don't know. But to have something like one of the largest craters ever discovered in Greenland in the last 5 years, you know what I mean?
It's millions of years old. That's what they thought.
That's what's so crazy. It's like it's been here since before we've all been here,
and the ice is receding. So it's like it's like I'm always like whenever you hear about these ancient things that are found with the ice melting, I'm always like, it's the thing is gonna happen. The movie of The Thing. I'm
right. That's it's the last acorn that like causes the ice age huge thing from the beginning of Ice Age all those years ago.
The frozen aliens come out. They're gonna thaw.
It makes me wonder, like, man, if we're just now, like, I don't know, a lot of those, you look at how does South America have, all these pyramids and the way that they're built is like, there's 3 of them that make it's just so crazy that there's, it's crazy that you look back in time and it's like, there's obviously such an intense and deep like knowledge and wisdom from past. It's crazy because we have technology now and it feels like, we're smarter than ever, but we have so much stuff that thinks for us that when you look back at the pyramids, whether you're looking in South America or you're looking to Egypt or things like that, you look at, oh my gosh, what is it? The one in Cambodia that's like this huge temple, like in the middle of the jungle they never found. Angkor Wat was there for like a zillion years that nobody ever found it until recently.
Yeah, they have that here in LA. Yeah, we're gonna go see it soon.
It's so crazy. So that's why when people are like, so you believe in Bigfoot? I'm like, yeah, we haven't found freaking anything, dude. We don't know nothing about this place. So
yeah, and I mean, history is constantly changing. Like, not constantly, but I mean, I guess I guess one way to say it is that there's a lot history. The history we learn is based on whoever won that war. Whoever hands us it. And there's way more to it that we can learn. About a lot of these cultures that died off. That had fantastic technology. They just didn't make it in the arms race and in the
right. It's interesting too because like
they died from their own back, from the Spaniards coughing on them,
Yeah, basically. That's what's so interesting is like because of the historical dominance of Europe coming over to the Americas, it's not that the Mayan and Incan societies were not as complex. It's like, even if you could win in a war, but you can't beat a disease, like it's just, there's so many things that played into how history panned out. You know what I mean? Like there's incredible societies that are happening in these other places that have just ceased to exist. You know what I mean?
They still, some of them even still, with Mayan, I mean, we still have some, relatives of the Mayans and cultures that are still existing, but
right.
But really, I mean, learning and diving into all that is really interesting to me. It's super complex and hard to kind of sum up in a podcast here. And I hope, I'm sure the historians, if anybody watched this, is sure that, if I made a mistake, I apologize and would want to learn more. But I think that, there's a lot of really, I love history and all that stuff and learning about, the lore and diving into it. And I think all that stuff is great for stories, as well. And there's a lot of cool monsters in many different cultures, not just the Mayan culture. So I that's why I love cryptids, all that stuff. So
yeah. Oh man, don't even get me started on cryptids. But dude, thank you so much for being on. Again, this is Ricardo Martinez, and so he's just put out part 1 of the Bloodstone. So if you once we get off the air here, email me a link to where we can buy this. So if people are watching this, I can put a link on YouTube and they can get a copy. And what's cool is Ricardo's putting out part 1, but then for like $1 more, like basically nothing, you get a special edition which has all these sketches that have gone back and forth from you to the artist, and some of it is, you're an artist as well, so you've sketched some things and then you're getting stuff back from these other guys. So just some really cool stuff. I've read part 1, and I'm constantly wondering what's going to happen in part 2, and I'm even I'm holding back from wanting to contribute and give ideas, because I know you guys are already so far into this, but it's just my mind just goes a million ways, just like with the Star Wars show. You're watching it, you're like, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen next. So it's super cool. So we'll put that in the description section. So if you're listening, if you're doing just audio for the podcast, hop onto the Chiss Ascendancy YouTube, and in the description section we'll have a link for Ricardo's short story. That's a video called the Citadel Scavenger. It's a Star Wars based concept. And then the Bloodstone Part 1 is for sale. We'll also have that in the description section, so you can get your copy today. And it's digital, so we're not going to run out. So you can buy one. You can buy one for your family for Christmas. Dude, thank you so much for being on. I hope you enjoyed it. The SWAmigos takeover, I thought it was a fun one.
Man, I mean, I'm sorry I talk so much, but this is like I'm like, oh yeah, we're hanging out. This is great. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the plug, and it's always been great to talk to you, Josiah. And RicardoAMartinez.com or the Bloodstone Saga on Instagram. But yeah, I'll put the link too, and hope you all like it.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, if you like this, subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and all of those things. If you give us a 5-star review and you write one on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it next episode on the air. May the force be with you all, and we will catch you next time.